name is Frederick Douglass Dixon, and I would welcome everybody for another webinar through the Black Studies Center 2022 Black History Month celebration and beyond. So today we have a really important conversation. And as I was explaining, perhaps this is the most important conversation that we had. Just depends on how you look at it. But it's tied to something that's very contemporary. It has a traditional backdrop. And from that, we have people who will be able to speak to it directly. And it becomes very important that we understand when we talk about the Negro question. The Negro question first emerged 1890 at the first Mohonk Conference. And the Negro question reads, what should be done with the presence of the troublesome Negro for maximum exploitation? When we think about how fluid that question is, and then we tie it to sports, and then we tie it to football, and then we tie it to the controversy that surrounds the Black quarterback, I think it'll make a great conversation. And I hope that all of you will have enough of your greatest mother wit to open your ears and become part of the conversation by being a participant using the Q&A as well as the chat. I'm going to introduce our host, Michael Wilborn, who works at the University of Wyoming in athletics as an athletic counselor, and he's going to take it from here. I thank you so much for taking up this particular subject at this particular time. I wish everybody good luck.
Appreciate you, Dr. Dixon. I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Dixon for giving me this platform. Especially, me and him gained a great relationship over the time that I've been here. So I want to just, thank him for, putting me under his wing. For the intros, my first person on the panel, originally from Gulfport, Mississippi, former University of Nebraska quarterback. He's first in career touchdowns in school history, first in career completions in school history, first in total offense in school history. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy Armstrong Jr.
Thank you, Miguel.
For my second person, and one of my good friends, man, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, formerly University of Illinois quarterback and other institutions, but most recently, University of Illinois. He was one of the top recruits coming out of Georgia, most rushing yards in a single game by QB, and he also finished 11th amongst FBS quarterbacks in rushing yards in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, AJ Bush.
Peace and blessings, everybody. It's good to be here with this conversation.
My last participant on my panel, originally from Dixon, Illinois, graduated at Aurora University in Aurora, Illinois. He coached at Central Washington University and also Eastern Illinois University as a defensive back coach and special teams coordinator. Right now, he's currently the co-special teams coordinator and cornerbacks coach at University of Wyoming. Also, as a player, he made conference 2 times and was a 4-year letter winner for Aurora University. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Benny Boyd.
I appreciate you. I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I'm glad to chop it up with these young brothers so we can discern.
Thank you. So before we get started, just like what Dr. Dixon said, he wants to tie in the Black quarterback conversation with the Mohonk Conference of 1890. Pretty much the Mohonk Conference was held to bring a body of facts concerning the conditions and the needs of the Negro. This pretty much impacts the Black quarterback directly, suggesting a natural inferiority exists in Black men that does not in white men. So we pretty much seeing exactly how NFL or amateur sports pretty much treat, different type of positions regarding race as well. For my first question, I'm gonna go with you, Coach, for the first one. What are the negative stigmas or connotations associated with the term dual threat quarterback? Like, what does that mean? What negative stigmas or stereotypes that comes to mind when you think of the dual threat quarterback?
I think it's a way to pigeonhole African Americans into being a certain type of player and a certain type of role. I think it speaks directly to, in a negative way, a young person's cognitive abilities. He's an athlete, he can run. Because you compare that to what they say about their white counterparts at the position. And he's heady. He's a precise passer. He's a great leader. Where when you reference the African-American quarterback, his passion may be construed as he's volatile, he's emotional, he's a great athlete. And those things are used in a negative connotation. And so I think that term is a way to pigeonhole African-American quarterbacks into being one type of player, one type of thinker when you get on the football field. And I think those things are definitely dangerous.
I appreciate that. AJ and Tommy, y'all could also chime in as well.
I agree with what Coach was saying. I definitely think it's a way to kind of section off a group of players, but in my opinion, being a dual threat myself, I don't think it's a super bad thing to be called a dual threat, because that means you can do more than one thing, so it's all about perception when you answer that question, when you take that statement. It's all about perception and how you see it.
For me, I personally think, just like AJ said and Coach Boyd said, it's more of when you get labeled as a dual threat. I look at it this way: it's an easier way of categorizing you as a quarterback. And like AJ said, it's how you take it and how you look at it. But for African Americans is at being at that position, I think the biggest thing is just taking that dual threat and actually, and you see it now in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and kind of taking that role and expanding it. Because me being in college when I was there, and AJ could probably vouch on this as well, you get thrown into that category of, well, he's there to run, or he's there to use his legs more. Of he's there to be a quarterback. And that kind of, after you graduate and you're trying to make it to the next level, you've already been set behind a little bit because of your category, being put in that category of, you have guys that's pocket passers, like you said, Miguel, is once you get categorized into that area, it's hard to get out of it. And I think that is the biggest step back of being an African-American quarterback, is just trying to get out of that, I guess, that main role of, yes, he can run, but just because he runs, is he smart enough? Because you have guys that are pocket passers, that they're categorized as knowing how to run a West Coast offense, knowing how to, get into a huddle and do this and do that and know the plays. And they're considered the brilliant minds. They're considered the quarterbacks that's the typical fit of being in the NFL. And then you have the dual threat guys that maybe he's good at running back, maybe he's good at receiver. And then those are the biggest things of being a dual threat African-American quarterback, that we fall into that category of being.
Yeah. And if I could chime in and say one more thing about that, Tommy, in my opinion, not nowadays, it's almost a compliment to be called a dual threat, because of the way that the game is now. You got DNs that's 4-5, 4-4, so if you ain't a dual threat, you're not you're not making much happen nowadays, you know? And so now it's just, I think that we have to really create a whole new position, you know, just a pro style dual threat, however you want to call it. But at the same time, you got to look at the way the game is evolving. And white, black, yellow, orange, you're required to have some type of legs now. And that's just the way the league is going.
I like that. All good responses. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
I guess to follow up on that, you know, Coach had mentioned this, the cognitive part of being a quarterback, but also y'all talked about, obviously, the running ability and the dual threat side of the quarterback. You know, Tommy, you had mentioned that after you graduated, you are still like in this box. They try to label you and keep you in this box. That's a perfect example for like quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, quarterbacks like we could name them all, Michael Vick, like the list goes on, like as far as people trying to keep those players in the box. Why do you guys think like they try to keep, I guess, certain players in the box? Do you think that the dual threat term maybe is a race term?
I wouldn't label it as a race term, just because you have multiple, and like AJ said, there's multiple times where, you know, like you said, white, black, yellow, it doesn't matter. You have guys that's dual threat, but at the same time, I think that's an easier way of putting it, of just saying, hey, look, you're a dual threat quarterback, and that's labeling you as a guy that can do a lot of stuff. But nowadays, it's a compliment, like AJ said, to be a dual threat quarterback. But in their era, say 20 years ago, the typical quarterback was a pro style quarterback that can go into the huddle, and his terminology was West Coast, and he was taking 5 to 7 step drops, and he wasn't known to run the ball. He was known to, you know, throw the ball with anywhere from 2 to 3 seconds in a pocket, and being smart enough. But dual threat guys were labeled as the guys that weren't smart enough, but they're athletic enough to be able to run the offense. But nowadays, I see it as being who is going to take that chance of bringing a guy in and molding your offense around him. Because I had the privilege of playing in a West Coast offense and a spread offense. I knew the terminology from both, but I still got put into that box of he's still a dual threat quarterback. And I've still had records where I broke. I still had times where I struggled. But there's also been times where a guy after me comes in and he does worse than I do, but he fits that typical mold and he gets drafted still. So that's where things kind of mesh.
Hey, we're not sending shots at no one. Like let's keep it a safe space.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Speaking of intelligence, can anyone explain what is the Wonderlic test?
All right, so basically the Wonderlic test is it's just like a IQ test for quarterbacks that are going through like the draft process or so to speak. And it's just another way for them to gauge, you know, what's going on intellectually.
Okay. What are, I guess, the implications for the Black quarterback when they take that test? Since I know, I believe AJ and Tommy took that test, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Coach as well. But as far as like your experiences, what are like the implications for the Black quarterback when they take that test?
Well, in my opinion, I think, you know, it's gonna be looked at, you know, with a bigger microscope, but that's just personal opinion. But at the end of the day, there's been reports out, you know, that saying like the Wonderlic test doesn't really, you know, connect to actual football, you know. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you gotta do it, you know. So I think they don't judge it too hard nowadays, but it still gives off good a certain implication as a coach to the player.
Yeah. Like AJ said, I think it's just basically a baseline test to see exactly where your IQ level is compared to just the normal players and the guys that's basically the veterans that have, you know, like I said before, they're the guys that are veterans. They have the high IQ of the game. They want to have a baseline of seeing if you're average or above average, and then they go from there.
I think it's I think it's outdated. I think it's antiquated. I think it's a way to, it's supposed to be a cognitive measuring tool. But this thing was created in 1936, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I'm sure they've made updates to it, but I think it's a way you're assessing cognitive ability, but it's a time test. Am I right, fellas?
Yeah, it's definitely
Right.
time.
So
Definitely time.
I know football it's a bang bang sport, but I don't think it's a very accurate way to assess a person's cognitive abilities. I really don't. But I think it's still used because football is, and especially the higher you get, it's a good old boy sport. And the good old boys have been running the show for a long time. And so they continue to do the things, one, that they know, that they're comfortable with, but it's also a way that we can maybe exclude some people without having to say maybe why we're really excluding those people. So from my perspective, and again, I played defense, I played Division III football. I was not as talented as the gentleman on this panel. But I've made my living in this sport. And I think that it's an antiquated test. I think it's outdated. And I don't think it measures what it sets out to, what it's supposed to do. I don't think it actually does, in my humble opinion.
I agree.
Coach, you had said a good point. I want you to elaborate when you said good old sport or good old, like what does that mean?
Yeah, when I say good old boys, what I mean is, and I know we'll probably get into this later, but you talk about hiring processes when you get to the highest level and coaches. And when I say the good old boy sport, what I mean is people whose complexion looks the same are going to look out for each other more than they do people who don't. And there's a certain set of rules, a glass ceiling, if you will, that certain individuals bump into, certain others don't. Some people got to take the stairs to the top. Other people get an elevator, don't even stop on certain floors. They go right up.
Wow.
And so when I say a good old boy sport, what I mean is people are going to look out for people who they know, who look like them, who come from similar backgrounds, who exclude a whole nother group of folks. And you can see that in a lot of different ways. We can point to a lot of different things. But since the topic is the Black quarterback, you can look at just in terms of success at the college level and how that translates to the NFL level. These two gentlemen on here, and I don't know their backgrounds and what they went through, but I would bet a nickel to a dollar, my nickel to your dollar, that defensive back was one of the things that they heard when they got done with very decorated playing careers.
Wow.
Running back, we'll put you in a slot, and and that's that good old boy stuff, because we're trying to put these guys in a box because of what their athleticism is, not looking at the whole picture. Whereas another guy who's the traditional pocket passer, as Tommy used that term, that guy maybe gets a quicker ascension to an opportunity, turn a job, because the good old boy network, the good old boy system, they're going to look out for cats who look like them.
I like that. Thank you for elaborating. I guess to follow up with that question, you mentioned that, I guess Black athletes, but just specifically the Black quarterback, are always, I would say, forced to switch positions when they go to the big leagues or NFL or wherever that it may be. Tommy, I know you had an experience like that as well. I don't want to put you on the spotlight, but like, can you share your experience as far as, after college, they tried to switch your position?
Yeah. So after college, I got an opportunity to go up to Minnesota as an undrafted free agent. I first started off at running back. Then I got switched to receiver, and then from receiver I went to corner, and then from corner I went to safety within a matter of a 2-3 month span. So I actually had to learn offense and defense within the period of OTAs and rookie minicamp. But my experience from that is just more of, like I said, it's either you want to be in that box or you don't. For me, I had the choice of, do I want to just say, no, I'm good if I can't play quarterback, or do I take a chance on my athletic ability? And then they have an excuse of, well, you didn't make it here, then we can look somewhere else. And I think that's what most Black athletes, definitely at quarterback, have to deal with, because once you get put into that box, it's hard to get out of it unless somebody, like I said before, when we were talking, if somebody takes a chance on you at that position, now you have that chance to basically prove them wrong and say, look, I am a quarterback. Because I've been doing that my whole life, and AJ's he's been doing that his whole life. They see the athletic ability. They say, man, look, you playing quarterback, but at the same time, why not play receiver? Why not play running back? You can make big dollars, this, that. But I've known it my whole life. I've been told my whole life, from elementary school all the way to college, hey, we just don't see you at quarterback. But then I've been proving everybody wrong. Why not? Why give up now when I get that opportunity to play in the NFL, or even get a shot of going to minicamp? Why can't I get that chance like I've been doing my whole life? So for me, that was my experience. That's how I looked at it. And like I said, it's tough for a guy to go 15 years of his life training in one position and then only have 2 months to switch a position and excel at it.
Yeah. So along with Tommy, I had an experience with the Dallas Cowboys. They had flew me out to for a workout, and they had me throw first, and then I had to run routes at the end of the workout and catch passes and stuff like that. And I didn't see anything wrong with it because I figured that if I wasn't a major draft pick for them or a priority for them, like they would see where they could fit me at. But I say this to say, because even with me, you got a guy like Lamar Jackson who won the Heisman, and he should have won it twice, honestly. But he has not one film catching the pass, running a route, saying not one highlight, not even in high school, and the first thing that one of the, I forgot his name, but one of the guys, he's an older guy, but one of the first things he mentioned was for him to switch his position. And in my opinion, like Black quarterbacks, when you win the Heisman, like if you're not winning the Heisman, your luxury is a little different, because you got, like with Lamar, like how are you going to ask him to run routes? He just showed you, because he's going for 400 passing in the air, 200 rushing. Like he's put up 600 yards a game at quarterback, and that it just blows my mind that that question would even come out. And so it's just weird, and that brings it back to, like, I had another point, with like acceptance of the Black quarterback versus tolerance of the Black quarterback,
Oh yeah, we gonna get there. We gonna get there.
Okay.
I don't want you to talk too fast. We gonna get there.
Nah, you're right. My bad.
I appreciate it, man. You got me fired up a little bit. I appreciate you, sharing your experiences. I guess for my next question, I guess this is for the dual threat quarterback. Sorry, coach. But being a dual threat quarterback, did that like play a part in like your recruitment process, or like you choosing a college, as far as, and what I'm saying is, maybe you didn't want to go to a Notre Dame because obviously they looking for a particular quarterback. On the other side, you may look at, a Nebraska or Illinois because they have a history on maybe quarterback or dual threat quarterback. So did your experience as a dual threat quarterback play a part in your decision making and the recruitment process?
I think so. For me, it's a different challenge. And Mikhail, I don't even know if you know this, and I'm glad you brought this question up. And AJ probably tell you about this. A lot of times you got to think about the broader, I guess the broader range in the recruitment process, definitely with a dual threat quarterback, because you have a conversation with coaches that kind of sound like this. We want you to play quarterback, but if it doesn't work out, and you hear that, now you're in the back of your mind saying, I don't know if this guy really truly wants me to be there, but once I sign basically a letter of intent to go there, now I'm kind of screwed, where now I get there and he says, you know, we wanted you to play quarterback, but we saw you a better fit at safety, so we're going to take you to the defensive room. But for me, that's probably how I look. That's how I looked at my recruiting process. Of I need to go somewhere where they're known for quarterbacks that run and throw the ball. You know, for me, I had a quarterback room with, you know, Taylor Martinez, you know, Ron Kellogg, and you had pocket passers, you had guys that could run, you had all different range of quarterbacks. But if you go to a team, for instance, I had TCU, that was one of my schools that I could have attended. But at the same time, after talking with the coach, he was basically telling me, no, we see you at quarterback, but if it doesn't work out, we want you to actually play defense as well.
Wow.
So that was I think that's the biggest challenge of the recruitment as being a dual threat guy.
Appreciate you for that.
Yes.
I guess going
Can I
back
chime in on that?
Oh, of course. Go
From a
ahead,
coach's
Coach.
perspective?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Because these gentlemen are right on point, man. There's coded language. There's coded language, and that's in anything. But there's definitely coded language in the recruiting process. A lot of times people will tell you what they need to tell you to get you to their institution.
Wow.
And life has just changed now with the transfer portal putting power back in the young people's hands. But up until this point, you got there and it was a wrap. We got you. It's over with now. And so that coded language these guys are talking about is 100% right. I pride myself on being upfront and 100. Have I done that in the past? I hope not. I hope not. But I know that there's coaches who do. And I'm not saying it makes them dirty or dishonest in the recruiting process, but there's definitely coded language. And what I mean by that is we're going to tell you what we need to get, what you need to hear to get you here. We may let you take quarterback reps for a week, but we already know in the back of our mind, we're setting you up to play where we want you to play. And that, I'm glad at a young age, those guys were able to see through that, because there's definitely coded language. That stuff is real. That stuff is definitely real.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we all played college ball. You know, coaches always recruit you and say, hey, we got these nice facilities and blah, 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 just to get you there. They'll tell you what you want to hear just to get you there. So I appreciate Tommy and Coach for, you know, elaborating on that, because that's definitely a topic that needs to be discussed, especially for young athletes that's in this recruiting process. I guess going back to AJ with the question, as far as the Black quarterback being tolerated and or accepted. AJ, I'm gonna start off with you. I want you to elaborate more on that.
Okay, so before I get into it, I just want to say, me personally, like, it's tough to take a stance on, like, you know, saying that you know, coaches are this and that, you know, white coaches are this and that, because it's been white coaches that have gotten me in the door, you know, that's opened these doors to even why I'm even talking to you right now. So, like, I'm a big person on control what I can control as a player, you know. So with that being said, like, acceptance versus tolerance. So, for instance, I'll put it in analogy terms. All right, so you got a group of people, right? A group of Black people that are having a party, and they're like inviting just only Black people, and then they invite a white person, or vice versa, bunch of white people, and they invite a Black person. okay, that black person that comes in, everybody's vibing, having a good time. He knocks over a glass. You know what I'm saying? That black, he the only black kid in that party. Everybody's like, get out right now, type. You know what I'm saying? Get out right now. You know what I'm saying? But if somebody else is to knock over a cup, it's like, okay, bro, you're good. You know what I'm saying? So with that as a player, you can't even think like that. You know what I'm saying? But that's the type. But you do have to know that does go on. But it's not your job to figure out when you're as a player. You just have to be aware of it and you know, and just control what you can control, like I said.
No, that was a great analogy. I definitely see it's very common when certain players make a mistake, and maybe I'm speaking from my own experience, but when we get MAs, or MAs are missed assignments if everybody that's listening, but like you know, when you get an MA, or you know, you mess up on film, you sometimes feel like you've been hollered at maybe the most or the loudest compared to other players. So I definitely understand what you're talking about, because I actually lived it. So was anybody else about to add anything?
Yeah, I think one thing I heard AJ mention that I think the landscape is changing a little bit is control. And he said, worry about things you can control. And I think for years, college football, NFL football, assistant coaches, our voices have only gone so far because these opportunities are fleeting. And for instance, let's say taking these young men's experiences and they get to the NFL, Tommy referenced it. Do I want to take a stand and say I'm a quarterback or nothing? Or this is a lifelong dream and I'm finally at the precipice. I'm right here. Am I going to be like, nah, I'm good? The same thing I think happens for a college athlete. Just understanding where your power is. There's power in your voice, especially when you can galvanize it. And we're seeing that now. You can look at the NBA and see how the changes they've made and how those athletes have stood on the table and said, nah, we're not accepting this. This is where we have to move. I think football is slow in that respect. There's a myriad of reasons, but part of it is people just don't understand their power. They don't understand how much power they can actually command. And the trick of it is people don't want them to know that. Those in power don't want you to know how much power you actually have. It's a way to control you.
Wow.
What they've used for years on us as Black folks. We'll keep the Negro docile. We'll keep him calm. He don't understand what his power really is, right? So we'll keep him on, we'll stay on his back, because if he stands up, we're going to fall off. So let's stay on his back. I think the college athlete has more power than they actually realize, and we're starting to see that now. Thanks to the transfer portal with the NIL things. And that's a whole nother conversation. I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think one of the things that's critical is, just like in anything, we have to understand, young people have to understand, old people have to understand, there's power in unification, there's power in your voice. We have to use it.
And like to piggyback off that, Coach, like there is a shift in the paradigm, you know, like you said. But another thing to be mindful of is that, you know, there might be there's a hierarchy. Anything in life, there's hierarchies. So if you're a player, obviously you're not that big on the hierarchy, but there might be a coach who's an assistant coach who might see something that's wrong or might want to say something, but he can't because the guy above him, you know what I'm saying, if they get out of it, then that coach's family, you know what I'm saying, he got a family to take care of. So he can't really speak up the way he wants to, you know, so we got to understand that. So like my thing is we'll never really know if racism is gone until you see different, higher ups becoming more diverse, you know, because you'll never know. And then that's how you know if it's tolerated or accepted, you know, but that's kind of what's going on with the NFL right now.
Very good point.
Oh yeah. That kind of brings me to my next question, actually. So obviously we are seeing the growth in Black quarterbacks in the NFL. That's obvious. but there's about, I would say about 70% of Black players in the NFL. There are 2 Black head coaches in the NFL. And I know Coach Boyd, one day, I know you talked to me about being a head coach one of these days. Right now, there are no owners that are Black in the NFL. In your experience or in your own words, does race play a factor in NFL evaluations regarding the quarterback or even coaching? Recently, I guess notable, the Brian Flores situation. So I'm gonna reiterate my question. Does race play a factor in NFL evaluations regarding the QB and or the coach?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can you explain?
I'll take it from a coach's perspective. Whereas my constituents whose hue is lighter than mine, they get recycled, they get other opportunities. White folks don't. You can just look at the Miami Dolphins, right? They hire, his name is slipping right now, Adam Gase. He doesn't do very well. He gets another job off GP right away. You can look at Brian Flores. Brian Flores, I don't think ever finished with a losing record in his 3 years. He won his last 9 games this year.
Oh.
Gone. And were there some internal things going on? I'm sure. But you look at how recycled coaches are and how recycled white coaches are and how some minority coaches don't even get opportunities to even coordinate on the offensive side of the ball, let alone be head coaches. And I think it comes back to the issue that we're talking about here. Why did it take so long for Black quarterbacks to be able to be given opportunities? Well, it's a cognitive issue. He can't manage, he can't lead. And we know these things to be false because all these people have come before us and laid the groundwork and showed that, no, this is not the truth. So now we're dealing with the same thing. And when did it change? When it started changing owners' bottom line. When they started seeing that I can play Doug Williams and win a Super Bowl, that's going to bring in a whole bunch of money. I can start Steve McNair, he's going to be the league MVP and take me to the Super Bowl. That's going to bring in a whole bunch of money. We got Russell Wilson, who is very, he toes the line, you know what I mean? And he's a very good player and it brings in money. And so we're going to have a shift in the paradigm. And yeah, there are no Black owners, but I don't think it's an issue of we need Black owners. We do need Black owners, but it's not an issue of we need Black owners before we can have Black head coaches. We need ownership to realize that this is you're falling short. And until they care enough, nothing's going to matter. The way the Rooney Rule is set up, it's ridiculous. And the thing about the Rooney Rule in concept, it's great. But there's a 3-week period when the NFL ownership can interview new head coaches. It's during the playoffs. Well, a lot of these coaches who are up for these opportunities are winning. They're in the playoffs. So to be able to prepare properly for an interview to be the face of a multi-million, maybe billion-dollar corporation, to be able to do that properly and get your team ready to win, because you have an obligation to those 53 men on your roster and other coaches to be prepared. That's not realistic. That's not realistic. And so the whole setup of it, we know we've heard, this term of check the box, but that's what happens. That's what happens. We checked the box. We interviewed our minority candidate and we still want to go with Roy. Still want to go with Chad, whoever that may be. So yeah, I absolutely think race plays an issue when you're talking about coaching. It's the opportunities given and the opportunities recycled. That all you have to do is just have a pulse and be conscious to see that there is an issue. There's a huge issue.
I think the thing what Coach Boyd said is, and I've heard this my whole life, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. So the biggest issue with owners, coaches, is they're more comfortable hiring with who they know. So they go with OCs from, say for instance, the NFL, they got the Giants OC, they got, Kansas City OC. They got so many guys that's been around that big cycle for so long. You get fired, you got a chance because you're a buddy with, the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator. He knows that, I got to bring him in because I know he knows my stuff, and now I can bring him in. We ain't really got to start from the ground up. We basically teach him our ways and we go from there. That is the biggest issue, I think, personally, with the higher ups, is they're so comfortable with who they know. And it's just that simple. They're not going to bring in a newcomer when they're just doing this big circle with, just like Coach Boyd said, cycling people in. He has this background. It's the checkbox. He was the OC for 2-3 years behind, Bill Belichick. Those are the things. Bill Belichick's been played against all his OCs, DCs in the NFL the past 15, 16 years. And it's that simple. But they're getting head coaching jobs because they have that background, that checkbox, like Coach Boyd said already. So how can you rank a guy that's, been coaching high school for 15 years or 10 years, minority guy that doesn't really get a chance, has the, the IQ, the leadership skills, to a guy that's been behind Bill Belichick for 5-10 years and has the background, has the checkbox, and then he gets the job over him. Now he has to start back down from ground up.
Wow. Were you about to say something, AJ? Or?
Oh no, I was just finishing up. But I will say that people don't realize that football, when you get the higher you go, it becomes more like a fraternity. It's a brotherhood. Like for instance, if you join a fraternity, one of your obligations is to look out for your brothers for the rest of your life. And with that being said, like, it goes deeper. Like, football goes deeper than just calling a play and throwing a ball. Like, there's downtime, a lot of downtime in football, so like that plays a factor, because if a coach is trying to pick between this player or this player, it looks like he can connect more off the field with this player versus this player, because it looks like they might have more in common. He's going to go with the player that he's going to have more in common with, that he can go fishing with, that he can go hunting with, that he can do other things besides talking meetings. It's bigger than X's and O's sometimes.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Since we almost getting close to the end, I got one more question, then I'm gonna give it to the audience to ask you guys some questions as well. So for my last question, just like the Mohonk Conference, where they are trying to pretty much bring up facts and also have some resolutions in creating a better life for Negroes. So as far as this question, how do y'all think that the NFL can improve diversity regarding QBs, coaches, and or even owners? Does it even start with ownership?
I think it does. I think a lot of times they say you have to cut the head off the snake. You can't just, cut small pieces off the body. You got to cut the head off. So basically, you go with, a Black owner. He's gonna have a blueprint of how he wants his organization to look. Now, with that being said, he's gonna hire the right coach. That coach is gonna put the right coaching staff together, and they're gonna look at different aspects of position-wise who they want. I think right now, like I said before on that last question, it's so much of a cycle that most coaches, most owners are so, I guess, they're so used to seeing a pro style quarterback. They're so used to seeing a guy that takes a 5 to 7 step drops. They're so used to seeing the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Brees. They're so used to seeing that, but now they see Lamar Jackson, they see Patrick Mahomes, they see Josh Allen, they see all these quarterbacks that can run, they can do so much stuff with their legs, but they also can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So now you put in some coaches that actually want to recruit that want to actually give these guys a chance, that want to be the head coach that takes that chance of saying, hey, I need me a pro style, not a pro style quarterback, but a dual threat guy. That's when you start to see drastic changing, and that cycle doesn't repeat itself because everybody gets that fair opportunity to take their skills and actually put it where they deserve it to be. And that's kind of where now I wish I was in high school where now I can play football, because now if I went to college, I have a better chance of being that dual threat quarterback to say, hey, look, this guy can come in and be the next Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, something like that. Colin Murray. Colin Murray's 5'7", 180 pounds, but out there running a 4.5, 4.4 and slinging a rock.
And producing.
Yeah.
Producing. That's the biggest thing, producing.
I'm not a coach or anything, but I mean, obviously I'm trying to pick the player that's going to win, period. I don't care how you look. I don't care what's your ability. You know, that's all I'm looking for is if you're a winner and if you can really just a baller all around. Like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. But, you know, I'm not a coach, so I'm going to leave that to Coach Boyd. You got anything, Coach Boyd?
I think, you know, as far as quarterbacks, I mean, we're seeing the shift. Is it as fast as it should be? No, because we wouldn't be having these conversations if it was. But you're seeing it with the league MVPs. You know, Mahomes gets the term greatest ever. Lamar Jackson, obviously he's injured and we're a what have you done for me lately society. So he's out of the frontal lobe. But I mean, what these gentlemen are doing, Jalen Hurts, you know, these young brothers that are coming along that are doing really good things, they just need to continue to produce. And we know, just based on our experiences, and I'm speaking out of turn here for Tommy and for AJ, but we got to be 2 and 3 steps better than our constituents to be given a fair shake. And that's just what it is. That's just what it is. That's what I've dealt with as a coach. I've had to be
Man, you sound like my mom.
Your mom is spitting knowledge then. You know what I'm saying? But I've had to be better than dudes that I've coached circles around who get these opportunities to get opportunities. And in terms of the coaching thing, it's got to be one representation. We need to have folks making decisions who if they don't look like us, they can identify with us. I think of Bruce Arians and how he constructed his staff down there in Tampa Bay, not just with people of color, but women, giving them opportunities because they've proven that they can do the job at a high level, you know, and to go win a Super Bowl doing that. You need more, again, if it's not actual representation and people who look like us, and we know all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but people who look like us to be able to give opportunities. And then when we get them, we got to kick ass in them. Excuse my language. We got to win. You know, we got to win because our leash, and I don't want to. I'm trying to think of a different term than that, but our leeway to fail is a lot smaller than our constituents is. They're looking for reasons to get you out of there. Whereas with, you know, somebody else of a different hue, we'll give them another shot. You know, Matt Rule, excuse me. Dude has lost 23 games in his 3 years as a head NFL coach. One more. Go ahead. Yesterday, doggone it, the Bengals head coach, I can't think his name is slipping me right now, but they had losing seasons in his first 2 years. His pigment's a little darker. Does he get an opportunity for the third to get to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I know what my gut tells me, but, you know, obviously I'm not a predictor, but I think we have to continue. There's got to be trailblazers. So it's got to be people who continue to kick down doors like Flores has done. Mike Tomlin's done a great job, you know, in terms of winning, and he's stayed. He's never had a losing season, and I revere Mike Tomlin. But you look at Mike Tomlin's tree, how many other brothers has he brought up and put on? You know, he just hired Terrell Lawson as his defensive coordinator, which is awesome, which is fantastic. But how many other brothers does he put on? You know, and so we got to reach down and keep pulling brothers with us in terms of coaching and in terms of when we get that representation at the highest level of GMs, of ownership, But I think that's the only way it's going to change is by us breaking, not even breaking, but busting open, bombing the ceiling that they have on us and winning and showing us that and showing people that these boxes you try to put us in, they don't fit. They don't fit.
I like that.
Nah, Coach, that was, and I want to highlight a great point that you made when you said produce, and you said, you know, just got to be better. Like that's at the end of the day, even if it's not football, I think that's the conversation that a lot of Black households have in this world we live in. You know, because me personally, I'm not a person that wants handouts. You know what I'm saying? I don't want somebody to give me this opportunity because I'm Black, you know, like, oh, okay, sour grapes, give them one. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I don't want that. In this world, it just makes you have to be on your P's and Q's. You know, at the end of the day, that's the only real concrete option you have when you controlling what you control. Just be better, you know, learn as much as you can, do better, be better. And you gotta live it, you know what I'm saying? You gotta live and die with the consequences that come with it. You know, you just gotta elevate. That's it.
Appreciate that. Now I'm gonna pretty much take it to the audience and see if they got any questions. So anybody out there that got any questions for these young brothers, have a chat that's open right now. You could just type your question in and I just read it out for the rest, 6 minutes? So any questions, let me know. Just type it in the box and I read them out loud for everyone to hear. Kobe said we got one question in the Q&A. Okay, where's the Q&A? I thought I was in the Q&A. Chat, not the Q&A, Kobe?
It should
I see
just
it, never
be-
mind.
Yeah.
See it, thank you. So from Marcus Watson, he asks, is the Wonderlic test culturally biased? Y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right, cool. Marcus Watson, he asks, is the Wonderlic test culturally biased in a Eurocentric way?
Eurocentric. Does anybody know the definition of Eurocentric?
Like European in our American society.
Okay.
Do you think it's culturally biased?
I mean,
so. Go ahead, Adrian.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. That's all I was gonna say. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just common sense. It's like crazy questions. It's, when you look at it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
The difference between like, and I tell you a question that most people like. They look at it and laugh, like chickens and roosters, and they say, does chicken lay eggs and does rooster lay eggs? And it's like you have to know like the difference between the two. And it's like, oh shoot, like, or hen lay eggs, like which one? Like now you sitting there thinking like you got chicken, hens, and roosters, which one of them lay eggs? And then you get that wrong, they're like, well, this dude's stupid. But it's like it's crazy questions. So for me, I thought some of the questions I sit there and laughed about, I'm like, what?
Exactly.
The Wonderlic test kind of reminds me of, so back in the day, I forgot exactly what was what year it was, but like they used to test Black people before voting. And the Wonderlic test and that test kind of seems a little similar to me as far as they asking really questions that don't pertain to football, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got another question from Zoe, is it Simmons? I can't see her full name. But Zoe, she asks, going back to the idea of having to learn a whole new position, how has that affected your career and your views of the sport?
Well,
go
ahead.
I was just about to say it. I kind of my whole life I'm been told that, you know, I should play different positions. So I've been looking at it the same way. I think AJ probably said the same thing. It's about just going out there proving what you can do, and learning. Like the older you get, you understand. Like, okay, I need to improve my game each and every week, because it's fun playing different positions when you go from elementary school to middle school. Like, that's fun. Like, you just out there playing. But then once you figure out what you're good at and how well you can be at it, then you start to tone your skills into just that one position. And then that's where it becomes a natural habit of just getting there and doing what you can do to make it to the next level. Then you have some coaches that trust you and say, hey, look, we want to bring you in to play this position. So it hasn't affected my career yet. Like, I had a chance to play in the NFL, but it came up short. But that was my goal, of at least having that chance to get there. I still view the sport the same way. It's just the opportunity of those guys after me that I wish that they could get the same opportunity. And I think that is actually making that switch. Like Coach Boyd said, now you're actually able to get your foot in the door right now, or back then it was just knocking. But now you actually got a foot in the door. Now that door actually swinging open, now you're going to see more and more African-American quarterbacks, the dual threat guys that's back there slinging the rock and doing what they can do to play.
Yeah. And honestly, as changing your position after being a quarterback your whole life it's a benefit, because in a quarterback, you're taught to study little details about all other positions anyway. You have to know what all 22 players are doing. So you can get away with it rather than like a cornerback trying to come play quarterback. It's an easier transition from quarterback to another position. Mentally, I wouldn't say physically. You know what I'm saying? You ain't, a lot of quarterbacks ain't finna go in there and be D tackles. So. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's you can get away with it, man. It's a smoother transition.
Okay. Since we're 1 minute away, I'll do one more question before we end this thing. Any other questions in the chat and the Q&A? Oh, another question from Marcus. He said, like most industries, the higher you go in the NFL, the wider it gets. Seems like white owners and managers controlling a lot of Black bodies. Do you see it this way? Wow.
Yeah, he put that one in there. It is like, when you really in like black and white terms, like in layman's terms, like, yes, that's essentially what it is. But I just feel like as a player, man, I just feel like you just can't. I mean, you have to be aware of it, but you just can't let that deter your moves and how you how you move and how you work and what you expect. You just gotta keep going, man. It's just, at the end of the day, this world is set a certain way, and it's gonna take a lot to change it. Like, it's like being a quarterback. You can't throw a touchdown every play. You have to get a first down here. You gotta get, check the ball down. You can't go big every time. And that's the same mindset you have to have with the world changing. It's gonna go. It's gonna get more diverse. It's just different things have to happen. Different barriers have to be broke. So.
I think certain people do view it that way. To answer Marcus's question, goes back to that term I referenced before, the good old boy network. Because you can look at even how the NFL Combine is done. There's a lot of similarities to the slave trade. We're going to put an athlete up there. You're going to be in nothing but your skivvies. We're going to measure your arms, your hands. You know what I'm saying? We're going to turn you around and just eyeball you and ogle you to try to find any deficiency we can. And in some respects, there is some of that. To AJ's point, though, moving forward, it's about one, representation, and two, how things are viewed, you know. But I don't think we can rest and just say that, well, it's gonna happen. Because if it's gonna happen, it would have already happened. It's gonna happen by our own efforts.
Yeah.
And by, again, people using their voices, you know, myself included, to not just go with the status quo, and not be okay with some of the things that have been accepted as norms, you know, to this point. So I think, Marcus, to answer your question, some probably view it that way, yes. How many, I don't know. Is it all like that? Not in my mind. But is it like that in some respects? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
Appreciate that. You know, and really why I, you know, agreed to even have this conversation is because instead of hiring a Black coach, or instead of hiring a Black owner, it always starts with the conversation first. We need to have the conversation to even get started into the right direction. So I appreciate y'all for having this conversation with me. We are about 3-4 minutes over time. Oh, hold on, one more question, I guess. Francisca, while it is a matter of perspective, don't athletes have a choice of playing or not? Because slaves never had a choice. Ooh.
I think they absolutely do, but the one thing you have to think about is these are life-changing opportunities, not just for me, but I can create generational wealth. And so you have to be able to balance that out. And you're right, slaves didn't have a choice. But in some respects, this may be a person's only avenue to get their family and their descendants coming behind them out of situations. You know, I'm not saying that everybody comes from poverty. I'm not trying to make that distinction. But football coaches and players were overpaid. We make a boatload of money to play a game. I'm not trying to give back the money they pay me. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that that's where we are. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, you have a choice to not play or to play, but in some respects, if this is something God has blessed you with to do really well, and it's going to change the life of you, your family, your family's family, your kids' kids, you have to be able to balance that out, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And the kind of sad part about, you know, our reality today is that without money, you know, it's kind of hard to live a decent life. You know, like the slaves didn't have a choice, but you know, they had a choice when they decided to run up out of there. You know what I'm saying? They made a choice then. You know, it's ways around it, it's ways through it. It's just a way to, you just have to, you know, figure out what you want to do, what you want to fight, what you don't want to fight, you know.
For me, I think it's just I look at it like I look at everything around this world. A lot of people say you have a choice, but you got to look at it this way. We got things going on around this world now with vaccinations that they're firing, you know, 20-year experienced doctors because they don't want to take vaccinations, and they're losing their jobs where they're making $50, $60, maybe even $100, $150 an hour to help save lives, but they have a choice to take a vaccination or get fired. That's the same thing that goes with everything else. Like with sports, you have a choice of saying, look, I'm going to do this, or we're just going to let you go and you're going to lose out on millions of dollars. That's going to be, like Coach Boyd said, take care of my family forever. And that's how this world is ruled. Like you may think that like you have a choice, but technically you don't. It's either you're going to suffer from it or your family's going to suffer for it from the future.
That's powerful. I think that's it on the questions. I'm gonna close it out because I don't think nobody else is typing, and we already 6-7 minutes over. So I appreciate you, brothers, for real. I appreciate y'all even coming and showing up. You know, we definitely need to have these conversations. It needs to be an ongoing conversation, but you'll definitely hear from me again. I'm gonna turn it on to Dr. Frederick Douglass Dixon, and with the last remarks.
Well, I could say this. Can you all imagine, like, just for the presenters, what I'm going to say to you is all that you all have been through with this game of football and, you know, these questions that we've posed and answered tonight, to have a forum to talk about the Negro question and the Black quarterback. I just want to tell you all how important it is for the Black Studies Center to have this conversation. It's documented. Everybody got that part right. It's well documented. This is going to get a whole lot of looks on social media and things of that nature, but just for you all to bring your expertise and to take your time to have this conversation. Like, just imagine your grandfather being in your position and now he's got to play receiver, he's got to play running back. We have made some advancements, but to have this conversation is a blessing to be able to talk about those who came before you, and the way you all laid it down was very impressive. I always like to work with Coach Boyd, but Coach Boyd, I dipped out today just in case there was going to be like a Zoom bombing. And I know you get a kick out of that because I don't know if you guys know, but last February, the 18th, Coach Boyd and I, we were on a panel just like this, and we got Zoom bombed.
Man.
Like, these conversations, I want to impress upon you what these conversations are doing for the community here, especially Wyoming being as monolithic and monochromatic as it is. We continue to have these conversations. For you all to show up and do what you did tonight, I can only say thank you. And I mean it in a way that this will always be one of those conversations that I'm so glad that we had. It really impressed upon me the idea, and many other folks, about the Negro question and the Black quarterback. I haven't heard a conversation like this across the country. Coach, have you had a conversation like this?
I have not in a forum like this with the homies playing spades, you know, chopping it up. Not in a forum like this. So I appreciate that. The opportunity.
And for you, Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Bush, we thank you greatly.
Yes, sir.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate
We'll make ways to have conversations like this, but please always remember what you did for us, that we really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Always.
We appreciate you.
Really appreciate it. Michael, you did a great job.
Very good.
We started with a very small idea, and look how it came out. The vision worked itself out.
Yes, sir.
So I thank you all, particularly you all who hung around and asked questions. And I heard from Dr. Marcus, thank you. But again, you all I can say is so very proud of what just happened here tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's continue having this conversation too, by the way.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, Cal, man.
You guys just hold on a second. We're gonna close this down. Hey, I think that about does it for us, Toby.